They want you to think the problem is just a few bad apples. They want you to think it's about better training, better oversight, more committees. But just what if the rot goes all the way to the top? Yeah, it happens, folks. It happens. What if the psychopaths and the narcissists aren't just in the system, but what if they are the system? Tonight, brothers and sisters, I'm joined by John Masters, a Latter-day Saint, a Mormon, I guess you would say, to those who aren't members of the church. So they recognize who we are, but we are not Mormons. We are the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We are saints. But let's just say, for identification's sake, people call us Mormons. A Mormon police officer who backed the badge and who still does. He defended his brothers in blue and stood for law and order. He's also been overseas, Afghanistan, other places, until he exposed corruption at the highest levels of his department, and they fired him. But for what? Was it for being a Latter-day Saint? Well, some said they did training throughout. They do training throughout Georgia, and they mention the church being a cult. Yes, these are things that we're starting to see again, folks. This is rearing its ugly head again in these days. Here's what they don't want you to know. They didn't just fire him for being a whistleblower. They fired him for being a Latter-day Saint. When you stand for truth in a system built on lies, when you refuse to bow to their corrupt authority, they will destroy you. So ask yourself this: if they'll persecute a good cop, and I'm talking about cops and higher up cops like chiefs and captains persecuting cops for being Latter-day Saints, and we're going to talk about psychopathy and sociopathy and narcissism within the force and lack of training. We're talking to a police officer. If they'll persecute him for his faith and his integrity, what won't they do to you? Welcome to the last dispensation. You're living in it.
We don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep going. Don't really know where the world is gonna go.
By the way, folks, John told me to interrupt him. Right, John?
Yes, Troy
They
has a lot
get
to
so mad. You know that. They get so mad at me when I interrupt. But when I've got a talker and you're a talker,
on
I
this
don't even.
subject, especially when it comes to gospel doctrines and preach my gospel. Man, we can go for hours. This is one of
Well,
my favorite subjects.
and organic conversations, people interrupt each other. So you people that don't like that I'm interrupting, too bad. Shove it in your pie hole. Anyway, joking. I love you guys so much. And I love John. John's a good man. Officer Masters. Okay, brothers and sisters, I've got a really good one for you today. This is interesting, to say the least. Talk about Latter-day Saint persecution. This man understands. He recently, like a month and a half ago, you were a police officer, correct?
Yes. Well, so I'm still a certified police officer. I have training. My certification's still valid. I'm not actively employed by an agency right now.
Okay, and how long did you serve as as a peace officer?
I spent a year as a jailer starting in 2018. I became a police officer in 2019. I've been police officer with full arrest authority since 2019 in the state that I'm certified in.
Okay, so that would be 19, 20, 21, 22, about
About
six,
7 years. Yeah.
7 years as an officer. So you've seen a lot. And before that, you were in what, Afghanistan?
So before I was a police officer, I was going to college. I was using my GI Bill. Um, Most of my training was geared towards computer information systems, computer science engineering. I had a little bit of finance background. I went through Basel training. I learned FPML, XML. My intention was to go work for a bank as a white hat. That's
Right.
an industry phrase. It's someone who does internal security and risk management. And specifically, I was going to go into risk management. It ended up not being for me. I went into law enforcement. It became more than just a job. It became a profession. Became very important in my life. I took the profession and my job very seriously. And what I discovered, at least in this state, and I have noticed it in other states, not every police officer takes it seriously.
Hmm.
I have seen police officers make decisions that many of the public, regardless of their faith, is going to sit there and go, that person, that's corruption. That's no, that's not how this works. In this state, especially, that is acceptable, normal cultural behavior. And
Right.
I have had to learn to accept it and keep my mouth shut, especially considering the church that I'm a member of.
Well, would you say, it's interesting that you say that because would you say that more than half of people in law enforcement could be suffer? I don't know if you'd call it suffer, but could be psychopaths or sociopaths?
I've seen it. I've
There's a
seen
lot.
narcissistic tendencies. I've seen sociopathic tendencies. I've seen psychopathic tendencies, especially among leadership. And I personally do not understand where that has happened and how we have arrived at this level.
But
But
it's
people
interesting
who
because,
should never have become police officers in the last 40 years have become police officers.
yeah, that's true. And it's interesting because sometimes you need a psychopath to go into because what do they say? Not all psychopaths are serial killers, but not all serial wait, but all serial killers are psychopaths or sociopaths.
I've
So
I've
you
heard
can
the phrase. I disagree with the phrase.
so you don't think you need a guy that's maybe desensitized to certain things that can handle a situation better than somebody that might be just breaking down emotionally.
Yes, I believe we do not need that person to be in law enforcement.
Okay.
There is training that I've received that teaches police officers how to deal with that stress in the moment in order to effectively perform and do the job. But as a human, to sit there and say that I don't form opinions and feelings. I was in Iraq and Afghanistan when I was in the army, and I would come home and people would look at me like I'm some kind of a robot. No, of course I'm not a robot. Of course I have feelings and opinions. It would be impossible not to have opinions and feelings when you're seeing stuff.
Right.
But I am also capable, both spiritually and mentally, of suppressing that in a moment to accomplish a job. I remind myself the first time I arrested a member of the church, she was in my stake. It broke my heart. She was 3 times the legal limit. It was unbelievable. She was massively drunk. It was one of my first DUI arrests when I went into DUI enforcement.
Hmm.
This is before I became a narcotics interdiction officer.
Okay.
And it broke my heart. I couldn't believe it. I was a young cop. I had barely been out of the academy a year. It just, I mean, it tore me to pieces. I had been on stake temple trips with this woman. I couldn't believe it. 3 weeks later, the second time I arrested a member, I looked at this lady and I went, I just arrested you 3 weeks ago. That's when my opinion towards people changed. The church is true, this gospel's true, and I am absolutely so grateful that nearly 21 years ago, a missionary put a Book of Mormon in my hand. But I understand the people are human.
Right. And they
I
go
have
through
had
things, and you never
they
know
go
what
through
they
things
might be
you
going
don't know
through.
you don't know
Right.
what they're going through. I had a lady whip out her temple recommend, and I didn't care. I took her. But she whipped out her temple recommend to prove she was sober. She wasn't. Her blood came back like point 0.3 something. It was insane. I actually took her to the hospital. Anything for me, anything above 0.27, we're going to the hospital. I take them to emergency because that is way um, the alcohol. When I have someone who's above 0.27, but they're functioning through basic field sobriety, because I have advanced DUI training. So as I'm seeing the signs of impairment and I'm moving them through the basic standardized field sobriety, but I'm also seeing the A-RIDE clues is what NHTSA calls it, A-RIDE, Advanced Roadside Impaired Driving Enforcement. And I'm seeing these additional clues, and then we're on the side of the road, and I use a PBT to determine where, am I taking them to jail or hospital? And they're well above a 0.27. We're going to hospital. It's not because I've heard cop, oh, I want to take them to hospital to solidify my case. No, it's the welfare of the person. If they're able to function over 3 times the legal limit, that means that person is so used to having uh, the chemical ETOH, which is in alcoholic beverages, in their system. When they withdraw in the jail, it could be life-threatening.
Right.
Alcohol withdrawals are life-threatening.
Yeah.
There are certain types of other drugs that are life-threatening withdrawals.
Hmm.
I have seen police officers shove people into a jail in life-threatening situations, and they don't care. And I think that's where the deterioration is happening, where I need to suppress what I'm feeling, the pain I feel for the human being if you've put yourself in this situation and do my job, but at the same time, also look at, I also need to preserve this person's life. We're going to take you to hospital before you go to jail. Because if you're at this level and I understand the chemical and I understand the medical conditions that are occurring, I have to make that decision to
Yeah.
protect the human being. There are too many cops in this country who have adopted an us versus them mentality,
Hmm.
and I don't understand why or where that came from.
Okay. So I want to let the folks know that, and look, guys, I know uh, John Masters. Okay, I've gotten to know him. So if I interrupt him, he understands because John talks, and he's okay with that. So if you got a problem with me interrupting him, maybe just keep your comments to yourself. Do you understand?
I I don't have a problem with Troy
He
interrupting
doesn't
me.
have a problem interrupting. Okay, I have to because I got to get to the next thing because he's one of the most interesting people I've ever met on the planet, and he's full of information. So the reason we have John on today is John's going to talk about not just police corruption, but you have a book that people can order through ebook, and we'll get to that, ebook or paperback, and I'll leave the links to all that. The other thing is, we're not just talking about police corruption, but we're talking about Latter-day Saint corruption or persecution, along with police corruption. And that's why you're not a police officer anymore. Before we get to that, I want to ask you something. Well, let me ask you two loaded questions. The first is, do you think that police officers should have better pay and maybe even psychology, like a bachelor's in psychology or sociology, or psychiatry, should they be licensed clinicians even before they go on the force? And what is the difference between a leader, let's say a sergeant or a captain or a chief that might be a psychopath What's the difference between their leadership and someone that doesn't have psychopathy or sociopathy
Sure. So the
or
first question,
narcissism?
narcissism, yeah. So I mean, the first question, yes, police officers should make more. My first agency that I worked at, I made around $13 an hour. When I was working as a narcotics interdiction officer, I was making $12.50 an hour.
Wow.
In this state, that is entirely normal.
And that's, do you want to tell the state that you're in?
I'm a police officer in Georgia.
Okay.
It's even worse in Alabama. It is. I went to the police academy with a guy. The department he was working for, while he was in the police academy, he made $9 an hour.
Wow. And you know, minimum wage in California is $20.
Yeah. So minimum wage here is, I may be wrong on this, but if I remember, it's a little over $7. I think
Yeah.
it's closing on 8 in the state of Georgia.
But the cost of living is a lot lower than,
Yeah, the cost of living in Georgia is much lower than the rest of the nation. The house that I'm in now, this would be $1 million home in northern Utah. I think I paid a little over 280 for it.
that's pretty good.
So,
Pretty good.
it's one of those things where economically this state is stable.
Hmm.
They don't have big swings up or down. The housing market has stayed stable. I look at other states. I look at the state where I'm from, in Anchorage, Alaska, and Fairbanks, Alaska, and I'm watching these massive swings. It's even worse in my grandfather's country in Canada, where there's houses that 20 years ago would have been, that was $250,000 house in Regina and Saskatoon and Saskatchewan. They're $1 million houses now. It's absolutely insane.
Right.
Big swings in Alaska, big swings in the Midwest, big highs, big lows. That
Yeah.
never really happened here in Georgia, and it hasn't happened for 60, 70 years. So because the economy here is so stable, the cost of living, food, materials, everything here is for the most part fairly stable. And
Yeah.
that was attractive to me.
Now, what's the difference between the two leaders? You said you're seeing a lot more because I said that I binge watch body cam, cop body cam
Yeah.
stuff. Like that's all I watch. My wife is like, "Really? You ever heard of the guy Donut?"
Donut operator. Yeah.
Yeah. I watch Donut Operator, dude. All he is shootings, right?
Yeah.
Body cams. Why are there more psychopaths on the force now? And what's the difference between a leader that might be a psychopath or a sociopath as opposed to someone who, um, what would be the opposite of that? Has feelings,
So,
empathy?
well, it's mm, it's a complicated answer.
And then we're going to get into your story and then we'll get into the book. Go ahead.
It's a complicated answer. When you have a narcissistic leader, that person attracts people that are like him or her. And so you start to see a lack of empathy among police leadership. They exhibit empathy towards things they don't need to exhibit empathy towards. They care about the vehicle more than they care about their officers' safety. They care about their budget. They care about money. When you start to see budget and policy concerns trump a human being, when you hear police leaders say, don't arrest that person because now we're responsible for them and we have to cover the hospital bill or we have to pay the mental health professional before we take them to jail. And you hear police leadership saying that across the country, it is happening. And when you hear police officers on body camera say these things, I know not to arrest him because we don't want to foot the bill, so we're just going to let him go. Yes, but the person still committed a felony. I understand they may have mental health and medical needs, but if you have police leadership that is more worried about money, this is the narcissism, this is the sociopathy. They are concerned about presenting a facade to their city councils because they won't take the time to educate their city councils on what it takes to have a modern functioning police force. The city council thinks, yeah, we do not need mobile crisis. That's for the big cities, or that's for another city. We are a big city, but that's for another city. We don't need that here. That problem doesn't exist here. When the reality is it does, you have a narcissist in charge who is so focused on other things that his lowers, who are probably either are narcissists themselves, because like attracts like,
Yeah, because he's hiring like-minded people.
right, who
So
are
you
not
might
going to
have a
see the
whole
human being.
you might have a force of 75 to 80% narcissists.
Narcissists.
Wow. Psychopaths even maybe.
You know, the old adage with Paul Harvey, less than 1% misfit the uniform. Okay, well let's do the maths. Let's do the numbers on that. Let's say it is 1%. That's the 1% we know about. There's 900,000 cops in the United States. I'm including federal law enforcement officers, even though I probably shouldn't, because even if you broaden the definition, I don't see federal law enforcement as cops. But we'll give it to them. We'll make it 900,000. 900,000 police officers. 1% is about what? 6,000? You really want 6,000 dirty cops? 6,000 dirty cops roaming around the country? Right. When it was 1%, it was a small number. But as soon as you actually do the maths, suddenly you're sitting there going, whoa, 6,000 cops is a big number. Right. Right. Out of 900,000. Okay. But the reality is the number's larger. Those are the ones we know about, the 6,000 that we know about that are out there doing stupid stuff, that are out there that think that they can do whatever they want. They can steal, lie, cheat, as long as they don't hurt anybody, don't shoot anybody, they're good to go. So they steal from people's cars. We just saw it in North Carolina. That was not the first time that cop got caught. Or sorry, that was not the first time the cop did it. It
Oh,
was the
was that
first
the
time he got
guy
caught.
that took the drugs out of the back of the vehicle?
No, this was the money one. Took the dude's money
Oh,
while he's going to
right.
jail on an
Yeah.
outstanding warrant. That
Yeah.
was not the first time that cop did it. I will stake my entire reputation. That was the first time he got caught. He's done that
Yeah.
before. He's done that before because he had a spot in his door to put the money till he could deal
Oh,
with it
the
at the end
guy
of his
that
shift.
admitted right away that oh,
Once he
yes,
knew
I
he was
saw
caught,
that. And it's in the door, and the guy's like, it's right there. It's right
you're
there.
right. Right.
And
Why?
that's
There would be no reason for him to show me his pockets and stuff. Like I know for a fact.
No, I want you to feel
comfortable. I would have
Yes,
felt.
yes, sir.
I would have felt comfortable if your colleagues would have searched you at the exact time where I knew where the money was. Because I seen you kept going in between your legs, and then every time everybody put all of the attention on me, you kept moving. I don't know if it's in your door. I don't know where it's at, but just like look.
Just want to say I'm sorry.
Gotcha, brother. Well, we're gonna walk out of here and close the door, okay, until they get here, okay, buddy?
Alright. Let me know if you need anything, alright? I'm good, Sarge. I appreciate it.
The Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer charged with stealing money from a suspect. We first brought you this story last month when Officer Henry Chapman was arrested and charged with embezzlement. An affidavit shows Chapman arrested Moncrief Moon during a traffic stop for an outstanding federal warrant. Moon reportedly had about $7,900 held by a rubber band. It says Chapman asked another officer to transport Moon while Chapman stayed in his vehicle. The documents say both the suspect and officer heard the rubber band snap, and Chapman was accused of stealing the wad of cash, hiding it between his legs. The documents say Chapman later admitted to taking the money, but said he was not going to steal it.
Why
And
does
then-
someone have a spot in their door for contraband? I never, ever, and what went on my driver's side door was a portion of my first aid kit, Next to that was my ticket book, which it collected dust. I almost never used that unless there was a quota, and we'll talk about quotas in just a second because there are quotas.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that, I had a pamphlets for victims. I had my victim pamphlets. That my entire driver's side door was completely full. So when I see a driver's side door for a police officer that has got an open spot, that instantly tells me he has got a spot where he conceals contraband money, drugs, whatever he's stealing. So when you deal with cops like that, and everyone was so shocked at that guy, oh wow, it's not the first
Well,
time he did it.
he
It's the
he
first time
did
he got caught.
right, and the one thing I did admire about him is he came forward
Oh,
quickly.
he knew to.
He had to.
He had to.
He was
He
done.
he was smart. Now,
Yeah.
what if that had been the police chief?
All right, we're gonna get into that in a second. We're gonna get
No,
into
I'm
that.
just the broader
Right.
question. You're asking about narcissists and
Right.
psychopaths. Do you think that female officer would have been that sticking to her guns?
No, she would have
Absolutely
probably
not. She
right.
would have
So
protected her
that meant they
career.
had a good chief.
In that department, it does appear Charlotte
So
Mecklenburg's leadership is creating officers that have the ability to know I can speak up and I'm not in fear of losing my job. That is a rarity in the United States right now.
okay, so here's another question. I like said to you and the audience, I watch body cam. I back the badge. Okay, I love police officers. I just do. I don't love all of them. I will call. I hate corrupt cops. I don't hate them. I hate corruption within the police force. I can't stand narcissists in general. I don't care if they're police officers, firefighters. I don't care if they're teachers, businessmen, whatever. I just can't stand narcissists. Let me ask you this. If I'm watching these shows, I notice a difference in the camaraderie with some forces, and you can tell that they have a good chief and they've got a good captain and they've got a good corporal and they've got a good sergeant, because it's going up the ladder, right? And these are guys, when they have to use their guns, they're crying, and
Right.
their comrades are crying with them, and they pull together. Let me ask you this: is a narcissist going to pull his gun before uh, someone that has that empathy?
Long before. It takes a
Why?
lot. It takes a lot for me to pull my gun. It takes a lot. Now, I'm not saying there aren't situations where I've served high risk warrants where the gun's already out, but there's history with the individual. I'm talking about in a situation on a traffic stop, it takes a lot for me to use force of any kind, especially deadly force. If you've taken me to that level to where my gun is out and I'm having conversations with myself internally of is this going to happen? Am I going to go there? For me, you're going to have to drag me kicking and screaming.
Well, what? How do you feel about, well, like donut operator? He doesn't like tasers. How do you feel about tasers? I think they get people into trouble. What do you think? I think they get police officers into a pickle.
The taser is a tool, no different than any other tool on the belt. Police officers who rely on it as the end all be all and treat it as if it is some type of magical non-lethal device.
When
In
it's
my
less lethal,
opinion,
right? Less
it
lethal.
is less lethal, not non-lethal. It is less lethal. And to treat it as a magic solution is a mistake. And in my opinion, is a deadly mistake. It is firing a projectile. You are firing a projectile at another person. I understand it's less lethal, but if that projectile does not achieve neuromuscular incapacitation and you do not achieve the desired effect that you were wanting when you discharged the weapon, that's what it is. The taser is a weapon. Okay, it's not a firearm, but it is a weapon. When you discharge the weapon at another human being and you do not achieve the desired result, if that was your end all be all, and in training, that's all you've ever done is you fire the taser, it worked in training, so it works all the time. And then when you get out into a real world situation and it doesn't work and you don't know what to do next, that's where we have these horrible uses of force. I don't understand 6 cops tased a guy 120 times. These absurd, ridiculous. The dude in New York where they tased was 7 cops, I think, and I may be wrong on this, but it was more than 3, all firing their tasers into this poor dude all at the same time. Of course he died.
Right.
Why? Because you've stepped out of the bounds of the training, because the training never taught you to prepare for this scenario. So you have no muscle memory to take over. You're stressed out, right? You're in a moment where you have to suppress your feelings for a moment. Use of force is never pretty. And because you have no muscle memory, you have no training to take over and tell you what to do next. What do? You go off the deep end. And your personality of that police officer will decide the outcome. And so if you have a department with a narcissist at the head and he's hiring a bunch of narcissists below him, you're going to have beatings, poor uses of force, no de-escalation whatsoever, and you're going to have videos where people are just I don't know what the word to use.
Chaos.
Chaos.
You're going to have
And
chaos.
people are going to watch this body camera and video and go, why are these police officers physically and mentally out of control? Because in their training, they received 0 resilience. They were not forced into any type of stressful situation or environment. And you can tell the difference in here, at least from my perspective, when you have combat veteran police officers, you can tell the one, he's in control of his emotions and he's probably looking around at his fellow non-veteran cops going, why are you guys out of control right now? Because nobody ever put them in a situation in training where they had to face their own resiliency and make a decision. And because it's training, it's okay. Whereas the military forces us to do that. If you look statistically at combat veterans, we hold lower uses of force than the rest of law enforcement. Now, mainstream media will tell you it's the opposite and then won't back up their data. If you look at the data, combat veterans, typically high number of us are fired from police departments because we didn't pull the trigger. And they brand us as we are unsafe to other officers. But if we don't see an objectively reasonable reason to pull the trigger under this nation's case law,
Right.
and we have another option, we're going to take it. We did not go to Iraq and Afghanistan to come home and jack up our own people. But me saying that makes other people think he won't shoot when it's time to shoot.
Okay, I got a question. Is there supposed to be training in after the academy as well within the force? Within the
Depends on the state.
So in other words, you
And
get
the
hired
department.
on to a department, you should be getting extra training.
You should be, but there is no standardized training across the nation. There's not even standardized training in the state after the police academy. There are some states that allow you to work for up to a year before you go to the police academy.
Wow. See, that's why I think that police officers should be treated, they should have the same training that cops get, but you should have a degree in psychology or a master's in psychology. You should be a licensed clinician, basically,
I
or
would
a
say
psychologist.
I would say that's unreasonable and near impossible to
Get paid
achieve.
more, but and get
Yeah,
paid more.
that would be unreasonable and near impossible to achieve. And the reason why is there is already a shortage of police officers in the country. If you look at the population,
But
about
is
300,
that wait here? Let me interject. Sorry, is that because you went in at a really bad time. That was during this LGBTQ activism. You had what was his name? I can't breathe guy.
Are you
Um,
talking about George Floyd?
George Floyd. You were in a time where people were afraid, especially white cops were afraid to pull the trigger. Am I right? Especially
That
on
that is the
non-white
verbiage. That is the
non-white people.
Yeah, that is the verbiage that many white police officers used.
Is it not true?
It is, in my opinion, it is not true.
Okay. Because you said
And
you're on autopilot sometimes.
you the training is supposed to be meant to when you are in a life or death situation and your body has moved past fight or flight, you're in it completely, your audio. When you're in that kind of a situation, you're you have a sensory deprivation. You don't feel stuff. You don't hear stuff. You get tunnel vision. If you have not been properly trained how to get out of that tunnel vision, you can get yourself or another person killed. And that's where our training failures are occurring. And that's where you have departments that realized they trained police officers to do something. Those police officers went out there, the muscle memory kicked in, they had followed their training, they followed their policy, and then the police department sitting there going, "Oh, we taught them to do this." That was bad. So instead of acknowledging the fault of the agency, they're going to sell the police officer out to dry. And that made a lot of cops go, "Hold on, you taught us to do this."
Right.
It's like, "Well, no, we didn't teach you to do it like that." No, no, you never put us, and the cops don't realize this. These police officers were never put through enough of a stressful situation to control themselves in the moment. Now,
Okay.
I fortunately started with an agency that forced us into those high stress situations
Right.
before we even went out on the street, let alone, and sorry, before we even went into the jail, let alone out in the streets.
Well,
So
plus you
my
saw
first agency,
battle in Iraq and Afghanistan and where else?
uh, um, so my unit's gone to Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Afghanistan,
Yeah.
Iraq. I don't think you need a person to have seen combat to be able to achieve the ability to
Okay.
control their emotions. My agency, the agency I started with, had a very good. I mean, it was incredible, the training. They put you in high stress physical environments, and they forced you into a point where the brain and the body diverged. And they had spent weeks prior to that going over the training, doing the muscle memory over and over and over. And then they put you in a situation. The last week of training, I remember it. They put us in a situation to where you had to make decisions. You're exhausted, you hurt, you're in pain, and you have to make a decision. And it's done in a training environment to where it's okay if you make a mistake. And then they pull you aside and they let you see what you just did.
Interesting.
And then they do it again and again and again and again, over and over and over until you're able to go through and control your emotions in the moment. That's before they let you work in a jail, let alone the street. So by the
Wow.
time I went to the police academy, the agency I was working for, that sheriff's office had pushed high stress training in the moment. Why? We want you to achieve control over this. Suppress your emotions in the moment when it is time to suppress your emotions. Look at the person, look at the human being, and make objectively reasonable decisions. Why? Because if you're in a high stress situation, you still need to have on the back of your mind as an American police officer, I'm here to protect this person, even if they're a bad guy. The sheriff of that agency pushed that training on to the lowest deputy and jailer because he wanted us to understand that we needed to be in those high stress training environments. And that weeded out a lot of people who wanted to work there. Those people went to work at other agencies, and some of those people I saw get in bad shoots, bad uses of force. And I thought, this was my first agency I worked for. That agency screened them out.
Wow. Okay. Now let's get into why you are here, the main reason you're here, because this is good preliminary stuff. I love cop stuff. So to me, this was interesting. And I hope it was interesting to my audience because you don't get to hear this all the time. I think I've always been fascinated with psychopathy, sociopathy, the bad cop versus the good cop, uh, and then you've got cops that are serial killers. And I don't know. I'm into criminology because I don't get it. I'm not a psychopath. And when you're not a psychopath and you're not a sociopath, you spend your whole life sometimes trying to figure out why people think the way they do. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
why they lack empathy. Now, let's talk about your story. Um, and two things we're going to focus on is brothers and sisters, we're talking Latter-day Saint persecution, uh, particularly in the South where he lives. He's going to talk about how the church now is basically labeled as a cult there. And then we're going to talk about why you're not working on the force anymore. So you go ahead and start. I'm going to try to be quiet because I know you have a beginning and end. What's the name of your book?
The name of the book is Blue Line Rogue. I actually have a copy of it right here. So this is what it looks like.
Okay, but I can get an image of that off of
Yeah,
the internet. So I'll post an
it's
image.
it's a short read. I mean, it's nothing to read. It should take no more than 2.5 hours.
And you have an ebook, and where do you get the ebook? Do you have the
So
link to that?
yeah, that
Okay, so we lost a little connection there, but that's okay. We're going to get into two things right now. One is religious persecution, especially against Latter-day Saints, because in the South now, for some reason, we are becoming a cult again. And
I'd really say it's east of the Mississippi River, north and
okay,
south. It's I'm seeing it.
okay. And then police corruption. So let's start wherever you want to start. You kind of know how this builds out. And the name of your book,
Is Blue Line Rogue.
Blue Line Rogue. It's an easy read.
Very
You've
easy to
got a
read.
you've got a paperback and you can get it in ebook, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
The ebook, the Audible, I made very, very, very cheap. Um, when I publish this book, I have control over the ebook pricing. The print version is what it is because that's how much it costs to print. I'm not making very much money off the print version. I made it the cheapest I possibly could without upsetting the publisher.
Okay.
The ebook and the Audible that is coming here in the next 10 days, they're dirt cheap. They're less than $3. The reason why I did that is because I wanted everyone to be able to get a hold of it and read it quickly, easily, without having to pay an arm and a leg.
Right.
If you're a part of
You're not, in other words,
Kindle's,
you're not trying to profit from this.
no, I mean, it was more important for me to get the message of the book. The second book will be the same. It will not be expensive at all with the second book. It will be um, about the same reasonable price. It'll be less than $3 or $4. The
Okay.
idea is I want people to read it and I want people to see what I'm seeing and the research that I've done is like with the second book, but with the first, this was an experience I had, and I felt it
Okay.
was more important that people be able to read it. There are times throughout the year I make it for free for 4 or 5 days.
Okay.
If you need to wait, wait.
Okay. Before you get started, how many forces did you work with the sheriff and police at one time?
I both. I
So,
started out with a sheriff's office, then I went to a police department, then I went back to a different sheriff's office
okay. So you were a jailer with the sheriff's department.
for for just under a year, and then I
Then
went
you
out
went
onto
into
the
the
street as a
force.
full sheriff deputy.
Then you went into a police force.
So with the sheriff's office, I did go out onto the street for about a year, and then I switched over to a police department.
And then from police, you went back to a different sheriff's department.
Right. And the reason I left that police department is because of what happened. That's what the book is about.
Okay, so let's start first with, should we talk about Latter-day Saint stuff being a cult and why, or does it all tie together, or should I just let you kind of take over from here?
No, I think we should focus on that. If people want the backstory
First,
of what happened, yeah, if people want the backstory of what happened, just go read my book.
well, we're
Just
going to
go read the
talk a
book.
little bit about what happened to you though, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
But I think it's important for people to see, this has been happening since the 1830s.
Yeah,
This is nothing new. To when This is all new. It may be new to you. It was the church. We have leadership in our church right now that was alive during the Great Depression, the tail end of the Great Depression, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Cold
hmm,
War. So when they say things and you're sitting in general conference and you go, yeah, sure. No, it's not a, yeah, sure. No, these men are talking from not only experience, but divine revelation of what is coming.
very
These
true.
men have experienced corruption, persecution their entire lives. There is a tendency, and I think it happens because we revere our general authorities the way we do, to not think of these men as having gone through any adversity, when the reality is quite the opposite. Every single man on the quorum of the 12 apostles has endured some type of adversity. They have come from countries that hated them. They have come from countries that were in war, either cold or hot. The experience of that, they have experienced some of the worst moments of human history. I was born in 1985, okay? I can't sit here and compare what I went through to what the Vietnam veterans that are general authorities went through.
Right.
Now, I go to my VFW hall and I hear the Vietnam veterans, oh, I'm glad at least my enemy had somewhat of a uniform on. It's like, it's cute to say it, but the reality is you're talking about two different wars, and the difference between Iraq and Afghanistan, another two different wars, two different wars, two different fighting styles. These experiences that these men had over the broad sense of the 20th century have brought us to where we are now, here in 2025. They're trying to tell us things. We're not listening. So then something happens in Michigan, and we as a church have our core shocked, our world belief, our it shocks our conscience. And we're looking at our leadership going, why aren't you angry? And they're going, welcome to the last 200 years. This
Yeah.
has been ongoing. There's no, I mean, and I completely agree with Elder Bednar's response. We're going to practice some love here, folks. Why? Because we are commanded to in Scripture. And if you don't mind, I'd like to quote some Scripture.
Absolutely.
In Doctrine and Covenants, section 105, this is after the saints have been kicked out of Jackson County, Missouri, and people are coming down to collect them and move them somewhere else. This is after a horrible period of history. It's Doctrine and Covenants, section 105, verses 38, 39,
Hmm.
or really 38 to the end. But I want to quote 39.
Yeah, let me pull it up. I'd like to follow along with you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is revelation directly from God to us. And the backstory,
Section
um,
105
section 105.
verses which verse?
The start at 38, but I'm going to quote 39.
Okay.
But this is right after. This is right after
Lift
Jackson
up an
County.
ensign of peace.
Yeah, they've been expelled. It is horrible. This happened. So now it's June, and this is given this revelation is given to the church through the prophet Joseph Smith, and it's very important. Those words. It is revelation given through the prophet Joseph Smith. This is Fishing River, Missouri. And they are upset. They're angry. They want justice. They want revenge. And in this revelation, Heavenly Father tells us, and lift up an ensign of peace and make a proclamation of peace unto the ends of the earth. Okay, we are not to seek revenge. And I hear it from members. I hear it from members, especially guys who are in the military. They want some vengeance. That is not what we are here on this planet to do.
No, but
And
we are here to protect ourselves, though.
we are absolutely allowed to protect ourselves.
Because
It's real simple. What I was doing at this department was interdiction. I was looking for guns, drugs, impaired drivers. Guns and drugs were the priority. The violence rate in the area was out of control. Most of the guns that I was finding were on convicted felons. I am 100% not an advocate for gun control. We cannot even enforce the laws that we have now currently. So what are more laws going to do? When I'm making a gun arrest a week, what are more laws going to do? I'm locking up a convicted felon every week with a stolen
Right.
gun. I'm
Right,
finding
right.
stolen guns, convicted felons over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Then I'm making that many arrests, that many guns. I'm finding proceeds from narcotics trades. I'm catching bags full of drugs. They're in the middle of dropping off. They're in the middle of moving through. I'm finding everything from marijuana, regardless of people's opinion on marijuana. I'm finding bags of marijuana, bags of cocaine, bags of meth. The smallest amount of methamphetamine I found at that agency was about the size of a baseball. That was
Wow.
the smallest amount.
Is that called an 8 ball, or that's bigger
No,
than
it
an
was
eight
just
ball?
about the size of a baseball.
Okay. Wow.
So you're talking about heroin, and that's a completely different.
Wow.
Um, and I'm doing this on a weekly basis to the point where, to such an extent that during my time performing interdiction, which was a roughly 13, almost 14-month period, I made 335 arrests and 140 DUIs.
Wow.
So 140 DUIs and 335 arrests. That tells you where the problem is. 335 arrests. Those are guns, drugs, convicted felons with firearms, warrants, violent warrants. That statistic did not include. I don't consider someone pissing off their misdemeanor probation officer as a. It's like, dude, go call him. But you have a warrant out for your arrest. I don't. The
Right.
335 I arrested, those were felony drugs, felony guns, felony warrants, proceeds from narcotic sale, stolen guns. Over and over and over, every single day, I found clear signs of distribution of narcotics and drugs, or sorry, narcotics and guns in
Mm-hmm.
our area. The hard one to deal with was there were very, very evident clues on that highway of trafficking, both sexual and financial trafficking. I was finding forged checks, real estate scams, smuggling of stolen goods. It was nonstop.
Now, is this in Atlanta?
No, this is in South Georgia.
Wow. What's the biggest city there?
Albany.
Albany. Okay. Yeah, Albany.
And it has a very serious violent crime problem.
So you're finding these drugs.
Yeah,
You're
finding
work,
these drugs,
you're
finding these
working. This
guns.
is your last department that you worked in, and
No, this
this
was
is
the department where these things, the book is about.
that's oh not the last because you you were told to Well, that's a whole other thing. You were pressured out of
Yeah.
your last place too.
So, and
And
we
that's
were going to get
also
to
in the
why.
book, right?
It's not in the book. I wanted the book is focused on
Right.
what occurred. My partner inadvertently discovered that our police chief was stealing, and the assistant chief was not only helping him, but helping him cover it up.
God.
It broke our hearts. We collected more than enough evidence to prove it, and more than enough evidence to prosecute both men.
So how does that work? You're working under both men, the chief and the
And
captain,
the assistant chief.
and the assistant chief. Is that kind of like a captain?
In this case, he was a major.
But this isn't sheriff. This is police.
This is a police department.
Yeah, that's right, because they don't have chiefs. How do you do that were you a deputy? Not deputy, I'm sorry. Were you were you a sergeant? Or
No, I was a six-sleeve officer.
okay. So
I had actually just refused a promotion.
okay, so who do you go to when you have to prosecute somebody above you?
So I went to
The
the
city
district.
council?
No. So I went to the district attorney's office. My partner went to
Okay.
the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
Okay.
2 days later, we were both fired.
So they basically went to your chief and told them what was going on.
He has a lot of political pull. We were not aware of that. He is very connected in Georgia Post, in the GBI, in the FBI. We had no clue.
How did you know he was stealing cocaine?
My partner literally caught him.
Like
And then
snorting it?
No, caught. It came what was sent to the crime lab was not what went into the evidence locker. And my partner, when he went to take it to the crime lab to have the cocaine tested, it came out of the police chief's hand, came out of his vehicle.
Do you think he was using it or selling it?
Based on the preponderance of the evidence that we have, because we were not able to investigate further, it does appear they were redistributing it. But we cannot prove that. I want to make that very clear. Because we were fired so rapidly, once he was notified, we were effectively cut out from being able to continue. But we were already on the precipice of we were starting to learn there was redistribution going on.
Now, before we get into your next job to where you were kind of forced out of that because of this guy, can we talk a little bit about Latter-day Saint persecution that was involved in this?
So when this occurred, there was a friend of mine in the fire department. He had been taking lessons from the missionaries.
Okay.
He did not know I was LDS at the time that he met missionaries, but he found out later. He started asking me questions. What does this mean? What does this mean? And I was simply answering him. He and I were already friends. He made the decision to get baptized right after I got fired. Now, he was a volunteer firefighter. He actually had a full-time job somewhere else. The assistant chief sent him a text saying, look, this is what happened. We're firing this guy. You don't want to be a part of anything with his church. They're Satanists. They're a cult. This is training that's given in police training throughout the state. And he was not lying.
About our church?
He was not. I have sat in training classes in the state of Georgia where the instructor has called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was in advanced DUI training when a state certified instructor who runs the program for the state, who crazy enough was an Arizona Highway Patrolman at one point, but for some reason didn't know anything about the church, started telling the entire class stuff about the church. It was absolutely not true. I have sat in classes in the state of Georgia where police officers will have Baptist ministers come in about the dangers of cult, that we are some type of Masonic cult, that we are some type of satanic, I don't know.
Wow.
It is the craziest thing I have ever seen. Sitting in the room going, are you for real? Did you want to be sued?
Yeah. I'm sure there are a lot of Latter-day Saint police officers and sheriffs in the state of Georgia. Remember I told you that I got family from Dothan, Alabama and Stone Mountain, Georgia and
Oh yeah,
South
Gwinnett
Carolina.
County. Yep.
Do you think it's because the Baptists and the Pentecostals and the Assembly of God is so huge there
I think that's part of it.
that that's just their culture.
It's part of the culture, and they are encouraged to get rid of us. I had a police sergeant at one of my agencies actually tell me that the Ku Klux Klan was a good moral organization. I couldn't leave that department fast enough.
Oh,
I even tried to explain it to the police chief, and he didn't believe me. So 3.5 weeks into my 2 weeks notice, I finally just turned the car and the equipment, and I'm like, yeah, you knew this was coming. I told you. I didn't even have a job lined up. I just knew I had to get away from that idiot. And excuse me for calling him an idiot, but
no, you have every right to. Okay, so now so you get fired. Um, how long between the time you got fired and you got this other job with the sheriff?
within a few weeks.
Okay,
And it was on the other side of the state. So we packed up and we moved to Northeast Georgia.
and you're thinking this is all behind me.
This is all behind me. This will all get worked out. Georgia Post is not that stupid.
Okay, so what happens?
I did not know that the police chief was politically connected to Georgia Post. He was able to control and manipulate the Post investigation, and they basically manufacture 10 pages of stuff that never happened, never occurred.
Wow. How long did you work for this sheriff's department?
A little over a year, and I got pulled into the office one day. I sat down, and the first words out of the chief deputy's mouth were, "This is a really tough decision. I've had a very lengthy conversation with your old police chief. If you do not quit, we're going to fire you." Now, I would like to bear in mind, I never had any discipline at this agency. I never had any discipline at the agency that fired me with the cocaine.
Hmm.
I've never had any discipline at any agency.
Right. No
So
write-ups,
no
nothing.
write-ups. I'm past my probationary period. Quit or be fired.
Wow. So this was a month and a half ago.
That no, no, this was in 2023.
Okay, so
He
wait,
has followed me to every agency I've tried to go to.
wait. Okay, so what? A month and a half ago, you were working somewhere else?
I was working somewhere else. Yes.
Was this police?
This was a police department. Yes.
And what happened?
2 days after I had finished my probationary period with that agency, I'm pretty comfortable. I think everything's working out. I've even gotten an apartment down at that city so I don't have to drive 2 hours to go to work every day. So I'm spending a portion of the week away from my family. In the pretty much 3 hours into my shift, he pulls me into the office and goes, "Yeah, you're just not working out. We need you to leave." Okay. Yeah, whatever you need.
Poor guy. I feel sorry for you, John.
And a lot of this was based off of, as I would find out later from other cops. Yeah, man, when these places find out you're LDS, then they call your old chief. They feel like they've been had, like they've been misled.
Well, and do you think the chief
Who
that
cares what
was
church I go to?
right? Do you think the chief that was still in the cocaine was using the Mormon thing as a
It is very
as a
clear he
as
was.
as a false catalyst?
It is very
To,
clear that he was, because in the investigative notes of his friend, who was my Georgia Post investigator, during the file review that occurred when he lied to Post about the reason for the termination. It wasn't because I was reporting him. What he told Post was completely different. A lot of it is made up stuff about when people read it, if they read it through the lens of being members of the church, they're going to go, yeah, yeah. They're not saying it in here because they know they can't because they'll get sued, but they're definitely making it clear. Yeah, all these Mormons are just a bunch of liars. You know,
right.
Joseph Smith did it. They all do it,
Well,
and
Joseph
I've
Smith
heard that
said,
to my face. I've
you,
I've actually had departments. I'll bring in my application, and they'll sit down and go, "Aren't you the Mormon who wrote that book?" And I'm going, "Well, I do. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I did write a book." Yeah, I mean, I know you guys are down with the fantasy weirdness and salamanders and everything else. We don't have a job for you. And I'm going, Okay,
Wow.
thank you. I mean, to my
Okay.
face.
Well, why don't you just get the heck out of, well, because you went to the temple. Let's talk about that for a
Oh
second.
yeah, we thought about that. My
Your
my
wife
my
and
spouse
you,
and I, we went to the Atlanta temple, and we were going to we just leave the state. This is this is crazy. I just want to do my job. I'm a good police officer who told the truth. I just want to do my job. The answer we got was, you're not going anywhere. I got you there for a reason, and you're not done being a police officer.
you're going to find a good job, brother.
But I have had to, I will admit, I have had to
Have you
screen
thought about
agencies.
going to Utah maybe and working?
Again, that goes against the personal revelation my wife and I both received. We are to stay here.
Amen.
He has
Amen.
us here for a reason.
You're
Every time we've
following the
tried
Spirit.
to leave the state, it has not worked out. So
Did
for
you look?
whatever reason we're supposed to be here, we are supposed to stay here. The frustrating thing for me as a member is sometimes I have to remind myself this has been happening since the beginning. I mean, Adam and Eve walked out of the garden, and the first thing that happens is they walk out. The adversary is there messing with them
That's right.
to such an extent that they actually, for a little bit, it's like, well, I mean, it does sound nice. I mean, we read the Pearl of Great Price, but do we actually take it seriously and look at it and apply it in our lives? When the messengers showed up in the Pearl of Great Price, what did the adversary say? Oh no, I'm teaching these people.
He says, what are these people doing? They want
Right.
religion
Intermingled with the philosophies of men.
mingled with scripture. Yeah.
Right. Now, when the messengers finally pushed him on, it's interesting, right before that happened, they asked Adam and Eve, what are you waiting for? What are you wanting? We're waiting for messengers from Father. So this is a tough time period for me right now, but it's okay because I understand the promises that are told to us in the Pearl of Great Price. I'm just waiting for messengers from Father. If I'm supposed to be a police officer, it will happen. And so if I've received personal revelation to stay here, do not relent, it will work out in the end. I'm gonna have the faith and trust to move forward. Now, I will be honest with you, I'm already seeing ahead to the future where I'm not going to be a police officer very much longer. I do want to move on to other things, but it's important, I think, for members, what we're seeing globally. This is not the first ward that has been physically attacked. And these are not the first time we have been physically attacked. I mean, other countries, missionaries are attacked. Just a few years ago, we had missionaries get killed. This is Michigan, I think, woke up my generation, the millennials in the church,
Right.
to,
Well,
whoa, what is this?
we're seeing a new I believe we're going to see the next greatest generation coming. Um Wokeism is dying.
But all of this was prophesied, not just in Doctrine and Covenants, not just in the Old Testament, not just in the Book of Mormon, not just in the New Testament, not just in the Pearl of Great Price, but through our leadership, as we've seen from Joseph Smith all the way to President Nelson. And we have been consistently warned to be prepared, not physically, but spiritually.
Right.
So now we're at this point, and everyone's shocked. Now I'm not saying that I'm sitting here going, well, of course that happened. I was shocked too. But at the same time, I'm sitting here going, yes, considering the trend of where everything is going, it does appear there are people in this country that hate us to such an extreme, and it breaks my heart that the suspect was a fellow veteran. That that hurts. That hurts me.
Yeah.
That someone wearing my uniform who served their country with pride would go in and kill their own countrymen over something because they don't like the tenets of a religion. And more than likely, it was because of misinformation.
Right.
And that's what I see happening a lot. So, that's partly our fault as members. Are we preaching? Are we following Preach My Gospel? Are we educating? Or are we hiding and saying, well, when people ask me questions, when that firefighter asked me, hey man, are you a member of the church? Yeah. Well, yeah, because when I came over to your house for dinner, there was a temple on the wall. Yeah, that's the Salt Lake Temple. That's where my wife and I were sealed. Well, what does that mean? We started talking. Well, my spouse and I believe. Well, I mean, why? Why? Well, it works for us. The Book of
Do you
Mormon works
believe
for
that?
me. It works for my wife. It doesn't have to work for other people.
Yeah. Do you believe that the by the way, folks, John told me to interrupt him. Right, John?
Yes, Troy
They
has a lot
get
of
so mad. You know that. They get so mad at me when I interrupt. But when I've got a talker and and you're a talker,
on
I
this
don't even.
subject, especially when it comes to gospel doctrines and preach my gospel, man, we can go for hours. This is one of
Well,
my favorite subjects.
and organic conversations, people interrupt each other. So you people that don't like that I'm interrupting, too bad. Shove it in your pie hole. Anyway, joking. I love you guys so much. And I love John. John's a good man. Officer Masters.
Just
Deputy
John,
Masters.
just
Deputy
John.
Masters. I know, I
I don't even do that
know.
on traffic stops. I always introduce myself as John because I don't believe I'm my title or job position. I'm a human being. I'm on the
See,
same eternal progression everyone else is on.
I'm in a town of 60,000. Okay. Even though I live in California, I live in Central California, which is more of the agriculture part of California. LA
Right,
and
like
San Fran.
Bakersfield, that area.
Well, I'm about 45 minutes, 50 minutes north of Bakersfield. So
Okay.
yeah, we're the raisins, where we've got walnuts, we've got every nut tree you can think of. We've got grapes,
Pecans, yeah.
pecans, we've got cotton, broccoli, cauliflower,
Lettuce in 8-week cycles. I remember.
tomatoes. Most of our vegetation is for silage, though, for dairy cattle.
Right. That's the way it
So
is where my family's from in central Canada and the Midwest.
yeah,
It's a lot of pulse crops. It's
it's
meant to
chopped up
sell.
for cattle
Yeah.
to eat.
Because dairy farming is the big thing. They
Right.
produce milk and they measure it in pounds, not
Yeah.
yeah.
Most of your milk people drink comes from California. But anyway, I was going to say this. You understand persecution, don't you?
I would say that I've experienced it and I have a better understanding of what our early church went through. But it definitely it I was just having a conversation with my bishop um last week. And something I mentioned, I said, if an uneducated guy in the 1830s can handle being thrown in jail and physically harmed over and over and over and over and over again in front of his own children, in front of his wife and children, me losing my job, I got this. I'm not going to complain. And he kind of smiled and laughs like, that's it's a good attitude to have. That's right. Go read your Doctrine and Covenants and go, if Joseph Smith can handle this, all I did was lose my job. I still have food, a house. I can find work. I am finding work. It's here and there. It's hit and miss, but
Are
it's
they
like
are they
I
are they,
am
are
not. I am going through nothing compared to what our early church founders went
right.
through under the direction of the Savior and Heavenly Father. They experienced actual physical pain, loss.
Yeah.
Lives were lost. All I did was lose a job. So
Are
I didn't,
you
I'm not going to
are you
sue
getting paid
anybody.
leave? Are you getting
No,
paid?
nope.
Okay.
I am
Are you
relying completely on what little pension I have from the Army. So, for me, I can't sit here and complain. And I know there's members that are going to say, that are going to try to compare me to our church founders. And I don't accept that. What I went through is horrible, yes. And is it legal? No. Should it be corrected? Absolutely. Am I going to sue anybody? No. But what I am going to do is continue writing books and tell the world about what is occurring in this state. And if that embarrasses some people and they lose their jobs, sorry.
You never know. I might have some listeners that live in Georgia that might be on the police force that might hire you.
You never know. And my thing, everything will be happening in God's timing. I realize we just read a little Doctrine and Covenants 105. 94 is one of the best sections in my opinion. It really emphasizes, you make mistakes, you move forward. The Kirtland Temple was going to be built whether those people liked it or not.
Right.
So whatever I'm being built into, for whatever reason this is happening, there must be a reason behind it. Through our trials, we were promised trials. Through Joseph Smith, Heavenly Father promised us trials. Okay, that's part of living here. That's the whole reason we're here, is to learn, grow, and then go home. So I can't shy away from this stuff. Fear is an illusion. Fear is things that have not happened and may not ever occur. You can live in fear your whole life.
Right.
Or, and I'm not trying to
Well,
sound cliche here, or you can cling to that iron rod and just move forward. Even if it's a little itty bitty baby step of, look, I'm going through a tough time, just move forward. I mean, horrible thing that happened in Michigan. What are we as a church already doing? We're just moving forward. We're just
yeah,
going to move forward. First thing that happened, Elder Bednar goes down there, and we're going to move forward. Why? Because that's what we are commanded to do. It's what we made covenants to do.
yeah,
It's just a building. Do I like that it happened? Absolutely not. Do I like that these things happen throughout the world? Absolutely not. But none of this has anything to do with our spiritual selves.
right.
You know, we'll rebuild the building and we'll move forward and it will be okay. We will recover. And the idea that I see it from a lot of millennial members and younger. There's no way we're in the latter days. It's in the name. It's absolutely coming.
Right. That's true.
But you know, understanding that means you should really be happy. Why, you're part of the group that gets to be a part of the prophecy talked about in the Pearl of Great Price. We're taking part in it. We're doing our ordinance work.
Hmm.
We are doing the things that are going to usher in our return and the Savior's return to the earth. That's incredible.
That's
Why would you
right.
not be happy, even in your worst moments? And I've had some bad moments. I've had some moments where absolutely I'm having a cruddy time in my
I
progression
understand.
right now, and
I
it's okay,
I was down for a couple months because I was going through some trials too.
right? But
Uh,
Paul
uh,
tells us, hey, count it all joy. Hey, just move forward, man. It'll work out.
that's right. It's been really good. I love you, man. I'll have you get again on the program sometime. Um, let's all pray for John to find a job in law enforcement. Someone that maybe a chief of police somewhere in Georgia or a sheriff that's a Latter-day Saint.
I greatly appreciate that. But can I say, instead of praying for me individually, pray for our nation.
Okay.
We may be we may things are changing.
Yeah.
Instead of praying for an individual, pray for our leaders.
Okay. But we'll
You
pray
know,
for you too. Okay.
I mean, President
All right.
Oaks, or excuse me, soon to be, sorry, Elder Oaks is about to take over
Yeah.
a church in a very trying time.
That's right. All right. I got to go, John. I love you.
Thank you. It was good talking to you.
Yep. And the name of the book again?
Blue Line Rogue.
Okay. And you're working on a part two?
I'm working on a second book. It has nothing to do with what occurred in
Okay.
the events in this book. It's about my opinions on training, where we're failing, what we can do to fix it, and how, as a profession, law enforcement can move forward.
Okay. Awesome. And then you're going to send me the links to how they can get the book.
Yes.
Either soft cover or ebook?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on
Yeah,
Goodreads.
but send me the links and I'll put them in the description section.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. Thank you, brother.